March 18, 2017, Jupiter, FL, USA, New York Mets shortstop Andres Gimenez, 83, connects for a base hit against the St. Louis Cardinals during a spring training game at Roger Dean Stadium. The Mets defeated the Cardinals 5-4. Mandatory credit, Scott Rovak-USA Today Sports. Scott Rovak, Andres Gimenez, viewed by most as the top prospect in the Mets system, has been honored as the shortstop on MLB Pipeline's All-Defense team for 2019. Gimenez reached AA as a teenager, partially because of an advanced approach at the plate, but also because of his glove work at the premium position, MLB.com's Jonathan Mayo wrote. He has the hands, arms, range and internal clock to play the position long-term, even if he has to slide over to second in deference to Andres Rosario. The now 20-year-old Gimenez was one of the youngest players in AA when he was promoted in the middle of the 2018 season, and the expectation is that he will open the 2019 season there. If he performs well, a promotion to AAA and/or the big leagues at some point in 2019 could be in the cards. Gimenez hit .282, .348, .432 with 6 homers, 4 triples, 20 doubles, and 28 stolen bases in 85 games last season for High A Street. Lucy before hitting .277, .344, .358 with 1 triple, 9 doubles, and 10 stolen bases in 37 games for AA Binghamton. In her latest scouting report, Baseball Prospectus writes that Gimenez has a ceiling as a first-division shortstop, occasional all-star, with a likely projection as an above-average everyday shortstop, who is a low-risk prospect. While the profile lacks superstar upside at present, Gimenez inherits the safe middle infield prospect mantle from predecessors Willie Adames and Ozzie Albies, notes BP. He doesn't have the power upside they've shown, but he's a plus athlete with a good hit tool. If you want to bet on a high-floor profile at the 6, that's the one, with the Mets being pretty stacked with infielders right now. Robinson Cano, Jed Lowry, and Rosario, Todd Frazier, and Peter Alonso means the Mets have 5 starters for 4 spots. The need for Gimenez in 2019 may be less than it was when the offseason began. A trade or injury could open up a spot for Gimenez this season. As could players shifting around the diamond, he's a gifted shortstop in the field, but he's such a smart, instinctual fielder, knowing where to be and when, that he'll have no issue moving to second base if that's what the Mets ask him to do, a scout told Mets blog's Matthew Cerrone earlier this offseason. Cerrone, here's how Mets could be impacted if they can't extend DeGrom greater than Reed Moore. Cerrone, here's a path for Mets to Bryce Harper greater than Reed Moore related. Is Lowry signing mean Alonso won't make roster? Greater than Reed Moore. It's possible that in just 3 years, the era of Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Steven Matz and Zach Wheeler with the Mets will be nothing but a memory. It seems like just yesterday that the above group, plus Matt Harvey, were popping champagne bottles on their way to the World Series. The future was bright. Zach Wheeler will be free to leave after this season. deGrom, 30, can be a free agent 2 years from now, with Noah Syndergaard and Steven Matz up for free agency the year after that. The hope is that, at the very least, deGrom will be inked to a long-term contract extension before he can sniff the open market. However, the longer both sides wait, the more he will be tempted by freedom. Mets Stottlemyre passes away. 0 hours 0 minutes and 58 seconds. SNY's John Harper and Anthony McCarron reflect on the life and legacy of Mel Stottlemyre. Former Yankees and Mets pitching coach Mel Stottlemyre died at age of 77 at his home in Seattle on Sunday night, as first reported by Bill Madden of the New York Daily News. Stottlemyre had endured a long battle with bone marrow cancer. He won a World Series as Mets pitching coach in 1986. And won 4 World Series as pitching coach for the Yankees from their title run between 1996 to 2000. In one off-season, the Mets went from having none of the top 10 second basemen in baseball to having 2 of them, at least according to MLB Network's Top 10 Second Basemen Right Now show. But the order might surprise you. Jed Lowry, who the Mets signed to a 2-year deal last week, comes in at No. 2 on the list, behind Jose Altuve of the Astros. Robinson Cano, who the Mets acquired along with Edwin Diaz from the Mariners in December, checks in at No. 4. SNY illustration. While the Mets have had a very good offseason, a nightmare scenario for them in the NL East could be getting closer to becoming a reality. After emerging from their meeting with free agent of Bryce Harper on Saturday, the Phillies remain optimistic that they will snag either Harper or free agent SS3B Manny Machado, reports Matt Breen of Philly.com. According to Breen, the Phillies seem to prefer Machado. And if the Phillies land Machado, that would theoretically increase the odds that Harper returns to the Nationals, who have reportedly again emerged as a strong suitor for him. Harper is also drawing interest from the White Sox. September 26, 2018, New York City, New York, USA. New York Mets starting pitcher Jacob deGrom, 48, pitches against the Atlanta Braves during the first inning at Citi Field. Mandatory credit, Brad Penner, USA Today Sports. Brad Penner, Andy Martino, SNY.TV. Twitter, Jacob deGrom and the Mets agreed to an historic one-year contract on Friday, avoiding salary arbitration with a one-year, $17 million deal, as SNY was first to report. That contract represented the largest raise in arbitration history, $9.6 million, and a record salary for a third-time arbitration-eligible pitcher. And it will certainly not hurt the chances that the player and team will agree on a long-term extension. New York Mets starting pitcher Jacob deGrom reacts after the top of the eighth inning against the Atlanta Braves at Citi Field. Brad Penner, USA Today Sports. Friday is the deadline for teams to exchange numbers with players who are arbitration eligible. If a deal is not agreed upon, they must schedule a hearing next month in front of a panel of arbitrators to determine that player's salary for the 2019 season. Teams that do not reach details could still negotiate up until the hearing date on a one-year contract or multi-year extension. August 28, 2018, Chicago, Illinois, USA. New York Mets starting pitcher Jacob deGrom, 48, smiles during the fourth inning against the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. Mandatory credit, Patrick Gorski, USA Today Sports. Patrick Gorski, Jacob deGrom and the Mets agreed to a one-year, $17 million contract for 2019, avoiding arbitration, as first reported by SNY's Andy Martino. It is a $9.6 million raise for the 30-year-old right-hander, a record raise for a third-time arbitration-eligible pitcher. While it means no extension for the reigning Cy Young Award winner, an extension still remains a priority, sources tell Martino. How does Lowry impact Alonso? 0 hours 0 minutes and 27 seconds. Adam Fisher discusses how the Jed Lowry signing puts a dent in the chances that Peter Alonso can make the Mets opening day roster. Signing Jed Lowry to a two-year, $20 million deal did more than add depth to the Mets' infield. It created a logjam that could impact top prospect Peter Alonso. While Alonso has repeatedly said he wanted to be the Mets' opening day first baseman and GM Brodie Van Wagenen wouldn't rule out the possibility that the 24-year-old Alonso could make the Major League roster out of spring training, signing Lowry means it's not a deal-breaker if Alonso starts the season in the minors. That's part of the sacrifice the Mets may have to make. Given MLB's service time rules, the Mets could benefit with Alonso starting the season at the AAA level by getting another year of team control. Will Lowry be a super utility? 0 hours 0 minutes and 46 seconds. Todd Sale talks from experience when he discusses the challenges facing Jed Lowry as he takes on multiple positions for the Mets. Andy Martino, SNY.TV. Twitter, the Mets' acquisition of infielder Jed Lowry on a two-year, $20 million deal that is still pending a physical crowds their infield, and has the potential to squeeze Jeff McNeil's playing time. As a solution, the Mets plan to use McNeil in the outfield in 2019, according to a person familiar with the plans. At the beginning of the offseason, McNeil was penciled in as the starting second baseman. He was nearly shipped to Seattle in the Robinson Cano, Edwin Diaz trade, but the Mets pulled him out of that deal at the last minute, and replaced him with reliever Gerson Bautista. September 7, 2015, Washington, D.C., USA. Washington Nationals outfielder Bryce Harper, 34, prepares to bat in the ninth inning against the New York Mets at Nationals Park. Mandatory credit, Evan Habib. USA Today Sports. Evan Habib. To date, there have been no published reports indicating the Mets have interest in or will eventually sign Bryce Harper. However, if things break the right way, I see a way Brodie Van Wagenen can step in and steal him. Again, based on talks with industry sources, as well as multiple rival executives, here's what I believe to be true as I type this right now. August 22, 2018, New York City, New York, USA. New York Mets second baseman Jeff McNeil, 68, hits an RBI single against the San Francisco Giants during the second inning at Citi Field. Mandatory credit, Andy Marlin. USA Today Sports. Andy Marlin. Anthony McCarron, SNY.TV. Twitter, might be a strange way to start a story about Jeff McNeil, but here goes. Jed Lowrie is a very good ball player. Mets are a better club after adding Lowrie on a 2-year, $20 million deal Thursday. He's no if that's for sure. And the Mets should be applauded for bringing in a switch hitter who should play regularly around the infield and deliver offense, even if some believe they needed a righty outfielder more. But signing Lowrie makes us wonder about McNeil, a second-half sensation last year. Where does he fit now on this Mets roster? Lowrie signing makes sense. 0 hours 0 minutes and 54 seconds. Andy Martino argues while the Lowrie signing might seem puzzling at first, it fits with Brodie Van Wagenen's off-season moves. Andy Martino, SNY.TV. Twitter, upon first hearing the Mets were closing in on a 2-year, $20 million deal with Jed Lowrie, my first reaction was, what? Lowrie is an excellent player, but he was the A's second baseman last year, and the Mets have Robinson Cano. But upon further digging, it made more sense. According to sources, the Mets view Lowrie as an everyday quality player who will serve in a super utility role. September 25, 2018, Seattle, Washington, USA. Oakland Athletics designated hitter Jed Lowrie, 8, hits an RBI single against the Seattle Mariners during the second inning at Safeco Field. Mandatory credit, Joe Nicholson. USA Today Sports. Joe Nicholson. The Mets brought in another veteran infielder this offseason, signing Jed Lowrie to a 2-year deal on Thursday, SNY's Andy Martino confirmed. According to Martino, the deal is worth $20 million over the 2 years for the 34-year-old. Lowrie had his first All-Star season in 2018, with a .267, .353, .448 slash line, a career-high 23 homers and 99 RBI over 157 games with the Oakland A's. The Mets' current lineup is better than last year with the additions of Robinson Cano and Wilson Ramos, but is it enough to avoid the offensive ups and downs suffered the past few seasons? The way it stands, Fangraphs.com projects the Mets to have the 7th most productive set of bats in the National League. Overall, the team projects to be the NL's 5th best, but that is largely due to the pitching staff, which projects to be the best. The thing is, if Cano, Ramos or Michael Conforto go down with an injury, let alone 2 of them dropping at the same time, the Mets will return to scrambling when forced to again lean on Todd Frazier to be a veteran, power presence in the lineup. Which is why they need to add more. Tim Tebow. Mandatory credit, Bob Carp. Daily record via USA Today Network. Bob Carp. Tim Tebow is tying the knot. The Mets prospect proposed to his girlfriend, Demi Lee Nell Peters, a former Miss Universe and Miss South Africa winner, and she said yes. Tebow put the 7.25-carat ring on her finger at a scenic view on his family's farm outside of Jacksonville, Florida, according to People. Click below to see the picture. September 3, 2018, Miami, Florida, USA. Philadelphia Phillies relief pitcher Luis Avilan, 70, throws in the 8th inning against the Miami Marlins at Marlins Park. Mandatory credit, Steve Mitchell. USA Today Sports. Steve Mitchell. The Mets signed left-handed reliever Luis Avilan to a minor league deal, the team announced Thursday. SNY's Andy Martino reported earlier Thursday that the Mets were still looking for a lefty reliever. And it's easy to see Avilan filling the Mets' lefty void in the bullpen. Luis is a left-handed quality major league reliever who addresses another off-season priority, Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen said in a statement. "We are pleased to see these types of proven players want to be a part of what we are trying to build." Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen has said that first base prospect Peter Alonso has a chance to win the job out of spring training this season, and that's exactly where Alonso's head is at. "I want to be the guy," Alonso said Thursday morning during an appearance on the MLB network. "Yes, I have a tremendous opportunity, but I have to work even harder and make the best of it and capitalize," Alonso noted, adding that he has been working hard on his conditioning during the off-season. Robert Hanashiro, free agent C. Yasmani Grandal may have inked a new deal for the 2019 season, but he can't be happy with what he left on the table in doing so, according to The Athletic's Ken Rosenthal. Grandal signed a one-year deal with the Brewers on Wednesday night. ESPN's Jeff Passan added that the deal was worth $18.25 million. "That's a nice lump sum for Grandal next season, but the Mets offered him a greater amount in their multi-year deal." Rosenthal points out that Grandal declined a four-year deal with New York that could have been worth up to $60 million. That is $15 million per season through the 2022 season. Rosenthal noted on Thursday on the MLB network that it was Grandal, not his agents, who turned down the deal from the Mets since he was unhappy with the average annual value. SNY illustration, Brodie Van Wagenen believes the Mets are the favorites in the National League East, but the division may soon become even tougher than expected. SNY's Andy Martino reports that Manny Machado to the Phillies, and Bryce Harper to the Nationals is the most speculated outcome of the two-star free agents, while MLB.com's Mark Feinstein reports that momentum is heating up on making that a reality. If it indeed does turn out that way, retaining Harper would be a monumental win for the Nationals. September 29, 2018, New York City, New York, USA. New York Mets third baseman David Wright smiles as he finishes batting practice before a game against the Miami Marlins at Citi Field. Mandatory credit, Brad Penner. USA Today Sports. Brad Penner, with Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen making roster depth moves over the weekend, it looked as if he was done making the big splashes this offseason, but that was before news broke that the Mets and former 3B David Wright reached a contract restructure after he moved into the role of special advisor to Van Wagenen and COO Jeff Wilpon on Monday. According to the Post's Ken David Hoff, the Mets won't be paying Wright's $15 million salary in 2019. Instead, they will pay him $9 million over the course of the year, with a lump sum of $4 million coming on Thursday and the rest of the money dispersed throughout the season. The Mets had been aggressive in their efforts to trade for Marlins catcher JT Realmuto, who the Marlins are expected to deal. Here's the latest. Jan. 3:25 p.m., the Braves and Marlins reportedly stopped talking about a trade for Realmuto, but according to SiriusXM's Craig Mish, talks have resurfaced. Mish believes that Atlanta is trying to wait out the Marlins. Houston Astros third baseman J.D. Davis bats during the game against the Baltimore Orioles at Minute Maid Park. Troy Tormina, USA Today Sports. Andy Martino, SNY.TV. Twitter, Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen has spoken repeatedly about eliminating the team's ifs for the 2019 season. Over the weekend, he executed a series of trades intended to do just that. Time will tell if Van Wagenen and his evaluators chose the right players to acquire, or parted with a prospect who will develop into a productive major leaguer. But the GM's goal was to create contingency plans that will at least reduce the number of ifs on the roster. Mets make moves. Trade Plawecki 0 hours 1 minute and 2 seconds. Kevin Plawecki is out, but who else did Brodie Van Wagenen move this weekend? What did he do to help the Mets? John Harper breaks it down. The Mets had a busy weekend acquiring a handful of players from a number of teams, targeting depth for their bench by trading pieces in their minor league system. To know the newest Mets and what they'll add to New York's Major League roster in 2019. Cody Bohannock, Bohannock, 23, is a minor league infielder drafted in the 30th round by the Astros in 2017. He has 9 home runs, 17 doubles, 55 RBIs and 18 stolen bases in 177 career minor league games. He can serve the Mets as a utility player with experience playing at second base, third base and shortstop in the minors. September 29, 2018, New York City, New York, USA. New York Mets third baseman David Wright, 5, waves to the crowd after a game against the Miami Marlins at Citi Field. Mandatory credit. Brad Penner, USA Today Sports. Brad Penner, David Wright will continue to have an impact with the Mets. The former Mets third baseman, who played his last game in September, will remain with the club as special assistant to COO Jeff Wilpon and general manager Brodie Van Wagenen. The team announced on Monday. Wright, 36, had expressed interest in remaining with the organization in a front office type of role after announcing he was physically unable to continue playing in September. Mets make moves. Trade Plawecki. 0 hours 1 minute and 2 seconds. Kevin Plawecki is out, but who else did Brodie Van Wagenen move this weekend? What did he do to help the Mets? John Harper breaks it down. The Mets weren't done making moves Sunday, as they announced a deal that sent Kevin Plawecki to the Indians. Plawecki goes to Cleveland in exchange for RHP Walker Lockett and minor league INF Sam Haggerty. With the addition of Wilson Ramos, the Mets had 4 catchers on the roster, including Travis d'Arnaud, who was tendered a contract earlier this offseason. In turn, Van Wagenen needed to get a catcher off the roster, and the team was getting a lot of hits from other teams on Plawecki, per SNY's Andy Martino. September 24, 2018, Toronto, Ontario, Can. Houston Astros third baseman J.D. Davis, 28, throws a ball to first base during the 5th inning against the Toronto Blue Jays at Rogers Center. An error on the throw by Davis allowed Toronto shortstop Richard Aranya, not pictured, to reach second base. Mandatory credit. Nick Turchiaro, USA Today Sports. Nick Turchiaro, Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen continues to churn out off-season moves, as the team announced they have acquired INF J.D. Davis in a trade with the Astros. The Mets also received minor league INF Cody Bohannock in exchange for 3 of their own minor leaguers, of Ross Adolph, INF Luis Santana, and C. Scott Manea. It was reported last week that the Mets and Astros were engaged in trade talks, and Seth Lugo was a focal point. Clearly, that didn't pan out. September 12, 2018, San Francisco, California, USA. San Francisco Giants starting pitcher Derek Holland, 45 pitches against the Atlanta Braves during the first inning at it. Mandatory credit. Stan Zito, USA Today Sports. Stan Zito, at the moment, the Mets already have one of the best starting rotations in the entire league, but that doesn't mean they can't add more depth. Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen is still on the hunt to perfect his 2019 roster, and according to The Athletic's Ken Rosenthal, free agent starters LHP Derek Holland and RHP Josh Tomlin are reportedly on their radar. Holland has one of the hotter markets right now, as the Reds, Giants, and Rangers have been linked to him this offseason. The 32-year-old pitched to the tune of a 3.57 ERA with 169 strikeouts over 171.1 innings, 36 games last season with the Giants. It was a big turnaround from his previous season with the White Sox, where he had an awful 6.20 ERA over 29 games. July 4, 2018, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. Milwaukee Brewers center fielder Keon Broxton, 23, makes a leaping catch of a fly ball hit by Minnesota Twins second baseman Brian Dozier, 2, not pictured, during the 9th inning at Miller Park. Mandatory credit. Jeff Hanisch, USA Today Sports. Jeff Hanisch. The Mets made 2 minor moves on Saturday as they continue to add depth to the roster. In a trade with the Brewers, the Mets acquired outfielder Keon Broxton in exchange for right-hand pitchers Bobby Wall and Adam Hill and infielder Felix Valerio. The Mets also signed left-handed pitcher Hector Santiago to a minor league deal, per SNY's Andy Martino. Ken Griffey Jr. Trade proposal. 0 hours 1 minute and 15 seconds. Former Mets assistant GM Jim Duquette reveals how close the New York Mets were to acquiring Ken Griffey Jr. from the Mariners in 2000. Mets came close to landing Ken Griffey Jr. In a blockbuster trade back in 2000, a haul of players would have went to the Mariners and possibly made them a worse ball club, although prime Griffey in that lineup would have given Mets fans a show. According to former Mets assistant GM Jim Duquette, they offered a package of Armando Benitez, Octavio Dotel and Roger Cedeno, but Griffey's no-trade clause was in the way. And at that time he stated he only wanted to go to Cincinnati. There was an outside chance we could get him if we offered this package. It got to the point where Pat Gillick, the Mariners GM at the time, went and asked Griffey, cause he was in the last year of his deal and they didn't think he could see him long-term. But he didn't give him any time. Here's a guy who grew up as a Mariner. If I had been given more time I might have accepted the deal, said Duquette. Bryce Harper. While the Mets' projected starting outfield currently consists of Michael Conforto, Juan Lagares and Brandon Nimmo, that doesn't mean that will be their outfield come opening day. Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen is still pursuing another outfielder, SNY's Andy Martino said Wednesday afternoon, and repeatedly said in late 2018, he hoped to add an everyday center fielder as opposed to another corner outfielder. With Yoenis Cespedes' return date unclear, top advisor Omar Manava said, if Cespedes gives us anything this year, that is gravy. That further indicates the team's need for another outfielder. Brandon Nimmo likes trade rumors. 0 hours 0 minutes and 55 seconds. New York Mets outfielder Brandon Nimmo compares this offseason's trade rumors to when he almost became a Cincinnati Red. At the beginning of the offseason, Mets of Brandon Nimmo saw his name swirling around MLB trade rumors, but he wasn't worried one bit. This isn't the first time it's happening. Calling into Mets' hot stove, Nimmo divulged on the first time he remembers his name being out there, and how that moment shaped his mindset about the rumors. June 12, 2018, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. New York Mets manager Mickey Callaway, 36, in the dugout against the Atlanta Braves in the first inning at SunTrust Park. Mandatory credit. Brett Davis, USA Today Sports. Brett Davis, Terry Francona knows all about a rough first year as a manager, considering he had it worse back in 1997 in Philadelphia than his friend, Mickey Callaway, did with the Mets last season. Francona, who came into that year naive by his own admission, piloted the Phillies to a 68-94 record in his inaugural season on the bench. He's since gone on to become one of baseball's most successful and respected skippers, winning 2 World Series with Boston and winning the last 3 American League Central titles in Cleveland. Asked to assess the rookie season of his former pitching coach, Callaway guided the Mets to a 77-85 record in 2018. Francona said, I think he's incredibly talented and confident in what he's doing. April 10, 2018, Miami, Florida, USA. New York Mets left fielder Yoenis Cespedes, 52, prior to the game against the Miami Marlins at Marlins Park. Mandatory credit. Jason Vinlove, USA Today Sports. Jason Vinlove, John Harper, SNY.TV. Twitter. Omar Manava went on MLB radio this week and downplayed expectations that Yoenis Cespedes is being counted on at all by the Mets in 2019. If he gives us anything this year, that is gravy, was the way he put it. Now wait a minute. New York Mets starting pitcher Jacob deGrom, 48, delivers during the first inning of a baseball game against the Chicago Cubs on Tuesday, August 28, 2018, in Chicago. AP photo, Matt Martin. AP, Andy Martino, SNY.TV. Twitter, the Mets and Jacob deGrom's reps at CAA have met just once this offseason to talk about a contract.